Well, hello everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Morgan Malcolm and this is my channel Love Where You Live. So today I wanted to do a DIY project and I've been looking around and I've been noticing a trend of floating shelves. They're really popular right now. You can see the one right behind me, which is one we're going to be making. So I'm going to show you how I make these, but before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about my rules for DIYs. So I have two big rules that I follow if I'm ever going to do a DIY. So the first one is it cannot cost more to make whatever this is than it would be to just go and purchase it. I think people get caught up in the idea of making it yourself and you buy so many different things to be able to make this project, whatever it ends up being, and it costs you so much money and you get lost in that. So I always am conscious of how much it's going to cost and what I can do to lower the cost by reusing materials I already have or trying to repurpose something instead of always buying more and more and more. So that is the first step. And then the second one is after I am done, my DIYs cannot look like I made them. If it looks like I made it, I will not use it. I feel like that defeats the purpose, in my opinion, of a DIY. My goal is to do something for less and make it still look like I spent a ton of money on it. So that's kind of where I come at DIYs from. So the floating shelves that I had originally had in my mind that I wanted to make were a wood grain, where you basically stain the wood and then just did a varnish over it to make it shiny. Now, the wood that you would use to do that is more on the higher end, meaning more expensive. So I chose to do alternatives. Obviously, you don't see wood grain behind me. You see a black floating shelf. So what I did is I went on Facebook Marketplace and I just typed in free wood and I found a ton of listings of free wood, but not a high quality wood. It was mainly MDF or like a plywood, which is, a lot of different pieces of wood glued and smushed together to form a board again. So it's the lowest end that you could probably get, and it means that there were a few extra steps included, and I couldn't do just the staining of it. I needed to paint it, but because I did that, I was able to reuse the paint from a different project, which was painting hexagons in my son's room. And if you haven't seen that video, I will put a card up here so you can take a look at that as well. But I reused that paint, so that's the black from that one, and then just added the varnish on top of it because I love things that are shiny. So that was how I kept those costs low. Basically, I got the wood for free. I reused paint that I've already purchased, so the only thing I needed was just basically the sweat equity and some sandpaper and then a varnish, which I actually already had. But so very minimal on the cost side of it. So let's go ahead and get into the steps. I will give you dimensions of what I cut, the sizes and everything and how it turns out, and we will go ahead and get started now. Here is the list of cuts you will need to do if you want to make those floating shelves that were the rectangular ones that are in the master bathroom. I did forget to mention I did have to go out and get 2x4s for the supports for the wall. But those weren't very expensive and there wasn't that much I needed for those. But here are all the cuts you would need for that one. And then for those triangular corner shells, I for some reason felt the need to make them in two different sizes to make my life harder. But here are the dimensions I did for each of those along with the supports, which were the 2x2s. So go ahead and write those down if you are interested in making these. Now for the front panel of those two corner shelves, you will have to cut the edges at a 45-degree angle for that to sit right up against the wall. So I went ahead and did that for all of those and I made all my cuts. The next part is going to be putting them together. So I use wood glue and then I used just a nail gun to nail the front of those to the side panels. The glue just helps hold it in place and give it a little bit more secure structure to it. And then don't go too crazy with the nail gun because you do have to fill in all of those holes, but you want enough to make this secure and sturdy. So I did probably about 5 to 7 nails in each. This is what they look like from the outside. So it's basically a hollow box. And then the same process for all of the, what are those? the corner shelves. That's what those are called. Whew, it's been a long day. So go ahead and nail all of those, glue them together. I let them dry for a full day, but you don't have to do a full day if you don't want to. You can go ahead and start working on it as soon as it feels like that glue has dried and they're pretty secure. But I decided to give myself a break because I did so many shelves for some reason. Who knows why? So here are all of those corner shelves, the 2 different sizes, all put together and drying. So to fill all of those little nail holes, I used just a plastic wood glue, and I went ahead and just filled those in just like this. So you just basically shove it into the hole just like you would fill any other hole. And because I'm using that plywood, it's not the best material. I'm going to have to sand this. So as soon as I get all of that on, I will go through and sand off anything. But if you are going to stain it, you'll want to do a really fine grit sandpaper so that it doesn't damage the wood. But I didn't have that, so I went to town on sanding all of this and making it as smooth as possible. You could see some of the wood did have, you know, some different damage. Some of it was warped, so it didn't line up correctly. So I did have to go and sand quite a bit down on most of these, and I just wanted to make it a smooth, flat surface for myself so that when I went to paint, it was a much easier process. So I'm going to let you watch me sand the millions of shelves that I made here. Now I know that this looks like a lot of work, but if you're not doing as many shelves as I am, this would be a much faster process. So don't let that deter you because it looks like it's a lot of work. It really isn't if you're only doing 3 or 4 shelves. So the next step is going to be to paint. To prep it, I went over that really fast, but I just wiped off all of the sanding dust that was left on that because you want the paint to go directly to the wood. And this again is the wood, or the black paint that I used from my DIY hexagons. So I'm just reusing that black paint. What I had left over was more than enough for these shelves. So I did 3 coats of black on each of my shelves that I made, and then 3 coats of the shiny polyurethane, which made them nice and shiny and glossy because I love that look. I think it's amazing. And you could do more coats of either one if you need to. Again, because this is a cheaper wood, it took 3 coats to make sure I was in all of those little nooks and crannies of all the little particles in there. But if it's a nicer wood, you can probably stain it and then make it shiny or seal it, whatever you want to do. They also make matte sealers, so if you're not a fan of the shiny look, you can go ahead and do a matte sealant, but I would seal all of this, especially if it's going to be in something like a bathroom that has any amount of humidity. You want to make sure wood's protected in those. So I go ahead and paint all of my millions of little shelves. All right, I'm going to let you watch that. Now, once you get all of your painting done, you're going to want to make sure you let that dry really well in between each coat. You just want to do that always with paint. So I did say I did 3 of the black and then 3 of the polyurethane, the shiny gloss one. I did not film that because I think you get the idea, and I also just forgot. So 3 coats of each, but go ahead and make sure that they are completely dry in between. Once all of your shelves are painted and dried, we can move on to installation. So we're going to use 2x4s, and I put pocket holes into my 2x4s for the installation, and I just use this system to do that. This is what the pocket holes look like. You put the 2x4s where you want on the wall, and then you screw in those other supports that stick out. and then your shelf slides right on top of those. If you need extra support, you can screw them down. I just put wood glue on top of all of the supports and the 2x4s, and then my shelves haven't moved at all since. So it depends on how you're using them. You can see the beautiful gloss on all of these though. It makes me so happy. Moving on to the bathrooms, we use 2x2s on these. You just install those directly onto the walls. You don't need any extra supports because these are small. And then again, the shelves just slide right onto those. And I use wood glue to just secure those on. And this is them fully decorated. They turned out wonderful, exactly what I wanted for this spot. They're out of the way, it's really nice. Here's just another one, so the 2x2s are on the wall, and again, those cuts were at the beginning, so if you want to see how big those were, you can see how I cut those. And then this is them installed. It's just a nice little, accent detail to a wall that wouldn't have had anything there otherwise. Not big enough for a picture, not really good for a shelf, but a corner shelf is just perfect. So if you like this project, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know whenever I upload new videos. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.